Hey guys, Sean Zine, the Connection Machine, and the host for the Network Marketing Insider, where I bring on guests that are involved in the network, affiliate, those that created crypto, and also those now that are Skool owners. And the biggest push is to help those that are quitting. A lot of people are joining and they're not sure how to, and they're floundering on Skool. And that's why I've decided, let me interview some owners of schools, find out what's working, what's not working, challenges, how we can strategies that will allow these people that are thinking about quitting to not quit. Couple housekeeping. If you're watching us on YouTube or the website, please hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, drop a comment. At least you can do hashtag live or hashtag replay, or drop where you're watching from. Then hit that share button. We'd love to help more people, and without you, it won't be possible. And the other part, if you're on the audio only, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, all those verticals, give us a review at the end. And don't forget to go into the description, follow all the socials from my guests, reach out and have a connection call, because I know things are going to go amazing if you take the time, have an open mind, and have that conversation. You'll definitely get involved with what they're doing. Without further ado, let me bring on a powerhouse, Matthew Hill. What's up, Matthew?
Hey man, thanks for having me, Sean. I've been looking forward to this literally since we connected. It's crazy to think it's been less than 10 days since we connected, but the growth in that time, particularly from what I've learned from guys like you and Scott and Layla and everybody else involved in these communities, has been absolutely huge. It's changed the game for me in Skool.
Dude, I appreciate you, and you're an action taker, and that's what happens if action takers now merge with somebody else, and we all like vibe off each other, and it's a merging of the ecosystems, and it just goes to a higher level. You feed off of others' energy, and if it's positive, it's uplifting, it's enthusiastic. Hell yeah, I want to get on board and just digest things and implement things, and that's why it's awesome that we all met and all growing together.
Yeah, 100%, dude. And that's the beauty of Skool. For a long time on Skool, I was really stuck in, I've been on since September. And so I guess not that long, but I was really stuck in pulling people to this platform, leveraging YouTube audience, Instagram audience, Facebook, word of mouth, those kind of marketing strategies. And while those work great to get people onto the platform, I couldn't keep people engaged. And I think it was because it's just an absolutely completely new software. People aren't used to using it. They're not used to opening their phone, going to Skool, and connecting within. And so it's really hard to break those old habits of opening your phone, going to Instagram, opening your phone, going to Facebook. And what I realized after connecting with you is there is an entire world of connections to be made within the Skool app itself. And once I realized that, Skool is built for connections. It's built for community. And so why don't we leverage the app that is built directly for that and connect with people who are already heavy users of the app, already action takers, like you said, and start making connections, start growing from there. And once I started doing that, like I said, literally less than 10 days ago, the growth has just been absolutely huge as far as connections, as far as how I approach the app personally. I did a little post just yesterday or the day before where I was talking about how it used to be Instagram took the prominent spot on my phone because it's the one I create the most through, the one I drive most of our growth through. And I just switched it the other day to where now Skool is the prominent spot on my phone because I can already see it. It is the way of the future as far as building these communities, spreading messages, even just holding businesses in spaces to invest and grow in that manner as well.
It is powerful. I saw that post. It is great. And I'm the same way. I think it's the game changer. A lot of people, it's new. So they're going to wait. They have that, I'm going to wait until it gets really successful. And that's the wrong mindset because you're missing out on the growth that you can have if you jump in now, both feet, and get into it. As always, I wanted to find out, Matthew Hill, how do you introduce yourself when you're out networking, while you're on Skool in person? How do you introduce yourself? And then also, how did you get involved with Skool? Did you find an ad? Was it someone recommended? I love to find out how that all comes about.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I love that question. So I am Matthew Hill. I am the co-founder of Impossible Performance. At Impossible Performance, we're in the business of human potential. We help people reach their highest potential, tearing down any limitations they have in their way through the story that they tell themselves. So what we are uniquely good at is we tell stories. That's what we've always done on our Full Production podcast. That's what we've done in all of our social media and content creation up till now. We are very good at pulling out the pieces that will move the human spirit to action in the most powerful ways. And what we realized along this journey is that so much of what we do in day-to-day life, what we do or what we don't do, and what we achieve in our lives is all dependent on that story we tell ourselves. I can't do this. I don't have enough time. I'm too old. Those are stories you're telling yourself. You're allowing yourself to believe every single day. And when you ingrain that into your identity, it will keep you from reaching the dreams that you have for yourself. So what we do is we come in, we leverage what we call the 4 domains of performance: mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, and we take control of that narrative. We give you active control over your life. And then you just spin a different story and it starts to grow and blossom from there. And it's quite a beautiful process to watch in people. And so we've now taken from going from YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, trying to reach people through that method. We've now integrated that all into a Skool community. And everybody in our community, we help with this story building process and help them change their lives and reach their goals through that process.
Telling stories is how you connect and you're deeper emotionally. I found the more you can get into someone's emotions in the mind, they're going to remember you forever. That's why I started doing video collaborations in the past for my insurance business. And people would say, oh, I've never done it before. I'm like, just come on, share some stories, share what you're doing, get out of your comfort zone and watch what happens. And I would have people that never done a podcast, never been on a collaboration, never did video, was scared, had that fear. After they're done, they're like, Sean, that was amazing. I need to do this again. Who they remember for insurance, they remember me without me even calling them. Hey, do you have anything I can work on? I do the same thing for my online business. I want to just connect emotionally, help someone overcome something. And if you help them, they're going to remember. It's going to come back. It might not be just them. It might be their family, their friends, their coworkers, because you ingrained in them, planted a seed of what you do and how you could help someone. That's how you bring people in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what I've always said since we were early on in our podcast. We're coming up on 3 years this year, which is wild to think about. But what I've always said is it is one of the greatest networking tools, community building tools you could ever have. And it's because podcasting, if you create a podcast, you have a platform and you can give other people the opportunity to be on your platform. And then if you get really good at telling stories on top of that, you not only influence, motivate, drive people within the conversation, but you subsequently impact the entire audience of listeners that's hearing that conversation. Through that, it gives you access to bigger rooms that you may not otherwise be in. We've been able to pull some guests onto our podcast that we would have never just been able to sit down and have a casual 1-hour meeting with, but because we put it in the storytelling format, we build a platform that we can spread it out to our audience. And it doesn't even have to be a massive platform or a massive audience. People are very open and ready for the idea of jumping on and having the opportunity to share their story, share their message. And it's a cool piece. But I really like how you talk about, especially for people who have never done it before, what I always tell them is, as a podcaster, if I do my job right, and I will make sure I do my job right, this shouldn't feel like you're doing any amount of public speaking. It should feel totally easy. It should feel exciting. And it will feel that way for you when you're on the show, because what you and I do is we cater the discussion. We guide the story. We're always thinking 10 steps ahead of, this is what this person's saying now. Which direction can I push it in order to give the maximum impact? I think that's really where the art of podcasting and storytelling comes through.
It's so true. And it helped me over time listen better. In the past, a lot of people they're listening to answer something or put something into the existence instead of listening to now reflect and then interact and get involved and be in the moment. Nothing is scripted. Nothing is going to be flashing up on a teleprompter that some people use. No, we want to be real. I always tell people it's like a little birdie on a little birdie with a camera that's catching the golden nuggets inside of a conversation that we can have in person or like we're doing here and gain value from it. And the beautiful thing is it goes onto social media, on YouTube, it's logged somewhere that it's not just that one time. It will be there forever. And people can come across it 5 years from now. If you're still in school, which I'm sure everyone will be, if not, shame on that person. But we can all capitalize on it because people are going to come back like, damn, look at you back 5 years ago. I should have joined you then. We told you that, but you didn't want to. It was too expensive. But, it's not expenses. You're investing in yourself. What are some ways you're investing in yourself, Matthew?
It's 100% through everything we're doing with our business, and that involves Skool. I'm now in several Skool communities myself, and thanks to you, I was able to get into AAA Wealth Builders just in the nick of time. Which, if you guys have not heard of AAA Wealth Builders, or if you've heard of it, just go on their page, join it. It doesn't matter what the price is; it is going to be massive, massive value on returns. And as soon as you're in there, you will see it and understand why. I actually sent you a message because you were I was not wanting to join because I've already so spread thin on my bandwidth. And I'm like, man, I don't know if I can jump into another community. And you were like, dude, just join. You even offered to pay my first month membership. And I was like, I don't need you to pay my membership. But I was like, if you could give me some guidance on the free community I'm building, I said, that'd be worth it for me. And you did that, and you've already been such an active, engaged member in there. And as soon as I got on AAA Wealth Builders, though, within a couple days, I was messaging you like, dude, thank you so much for getting me in here, because my eyes were open to what it can build. But platforms like AAA Wealth Builders, like NMI, the coaching academy you have, those are areas where I'm getting a lot of positive leverage, a lot of gain for very minimal investment. I got into AAA Wealth Builders at $25 a month. It's still only $97 a month, which again is nothing. I mean, that's what YouTube TV costs these days. And you could get in AAA Wealth Builders and build a massive foundation for yourself now on a platform that's about to go to global scale for the same price. So it's all about, like you talk about, things are expensive, but you've got to look at it not in terms of the price. You've got to look at it in terms of the leverage. What is this going to give me? And that's all part of that story we tell ourselves. So when I look at it making a purchase, I always look at it in terms of leverage, or at least I try to as much as humanly possible. And not that we should never go out and enjoy ourselves and spend our money on things that bring enjoyment. I think that's a very valuable investment in and of itself. But if you're buying a $7 coffee every single day, which it is mind-blowing to me how many people do that. If you're buying a $7 coffee every single day over a month's period, you would be amazed at the amount of money that you're spending and just really giving away. There's not a lot of leverage found in that coffee. Yeah, it may taste good. Yeah, it may bring you a little bit of caffeine, but you could do that for literally a tenth of the price if you just need the caffeine to get you going in the morning. And so I like to think of it in terms of that. Instead of spending a $7 coffee every day, you could join a community like AAA Wealth Builders for free. And then if you invest properly in a year, 2 years, 3 years time, however long it takes, you'll have so much wealth accumulated that you can buy 3 $7 coffees a day and it won't matter because it's such a small part of your income. So that's really how I like to look at it. I look at an investment as leverage and as opportunity. And I like to think of it in terms of not just financial investment, but time investment as well. Because for me, my time is a much, much more valuable asset than even financial resources. And so I have to think of it in terms of that as well. We've got a young 2-year-old daughter. I work full time, plus run Impossible Performance and the podcast, and I'm an athlete at the same time. So there's a lot of moving pieces that I have going on, and to squeeze everything in, it takes quite a bit of dedication just to the time investment. And so that's really where I like to push it, is focus on investment as leverage. Look at everything you're spending resources on: time, energy, finances, and look at the leverage they give you. And then once you figure that out, pull the highest levers first.
Love that. And I appreciate you sharing. Guys, he's a family man. Has a 9-to-5er, has a podcast, has an online business. And he's an athlete, right? Health is wealth. people say I have no time. They always make those excuses, and he's showing up every single day. How do you schedule? How do you make sure you're showing up to those and being present in each of those areas of your life?
Mhm. So I look at it honestly in the same way. I just break it down to a day-to-day process. So I call them critical tasks because I learned that from a guy I do some online coaching through. His name's Andy Frisello on his community. He's built a platform actually very similar to Skool, just geared in his specific direction. But regardless, he talks about critical tasks. And we look at 5 critical tasks every day. What are the 5 critical tasks, or going back to what I said earlier, what are the 5 levers that if I pull these levers today, it will give me the highest yield on return? And so I organize that first in the morning. We actually literally just released a full production podcast on that last week of how do you reduce the noise, take action, and find the most important critical tasks to leverage each day. And what we came to is you set these 5 critical tasks up first, and they don't have to be big, massive, grand things. You know, a lot of times for me, it's spend 1 hour with my daughter, some combination of a cold plunge and a small 30 to 60-minute workout, depending on the time I have available. Then it's listen to at least, 1 to 3 hours of podcasts or books that are going to drive me forward in some way. The fourth is usually in regard to Skool, either making a high level post on Skool across multiple communities, or leading like a group call or doing a podcast call. Sometimes I do multiple of those in one day. And then the last one is usually dedicated to podcast promotion for a full production, which happens still through Instagram, Facebook, other vectors. But now we're getting a pretty strong lever through Skool as well for the podcast. So those 5 critical tasks, it's really not that much to do in a day, even with working a full 10-hour shift that day. And what I try to do is I try to accomplish them as early in the day as possible, so that they're out of the way. There's less chance for excuse, less chance for having to negotiate on those tasks, and it leaves more opportunity the rest of the day when available. So that's really what works for me. And not every lever gets pulled every day. I'll be the first to be honest with you on that. And in fact, here recently, there have been a lot of days where I'm not getting in workouts as regularly as I used to be. And that's not due to a lack of discipline or a lack of focus or a lack of just drive to get it done. It's due to active decisions I've been making. I'm going to sacrifice this time right now because I want to invest it in Skool or in the connections I'm building on the platform or in the podcast. And that's a very active decision I made. I kind of retired from the strict competitive side of powerlifting after that last meet in August, and wanted to put more of that time and investing it into Skool and into these connections and into growing our podcast and our business, because I know that that's the investment that's going to open up even more time for me in the future, and it's most in line with where my passion truly lies. So it's not that I'm totally neglecting my physical health, but I found ways to how can I put as minimal time into these workout sessions as possible so that I can put maximum time into the Skool platform and what we're building with our business. And I'm perfectly okay with that. That's an active decision I'm making right now, and it will yield a good return in the long run. And something Alex Hormozy talks about, who, if you're on Skool, you know Alex Hormozy. He talks about things happen in seasons. There's seasons
Yep.
where I'm in a season right now where I'm building, and I'm not in like a physical training season. And that's perfectly okay. I think the key is as long as it's an active, conscious, strategic choice, as opposed to something that you're just making excuses for and allowing to happen or to not happen. That's where the key critical driver is in those scenarios.
We all have those sacrifices, and
Mhm.
I appreciate hearing that. Yes, it's not doing your body, doing yourself wrong because you're putting it in different areas. Just like I found guys don't grow up until they have kids of their own. That's where it gets them to a higher drive, a little inner fire. And I have 4 of them. So
Oh man.
my drive, once I have a 19, I have a 7, 5, and 3. My son, I was a girl dad
Mhm.
forever. And then my son was a mic drop, like, holy shit, we're pregnant again. But it just gets, and then paying for in New Jersey daycare preschool
Mhm.
it's another mortgage, and it's like,
Mhm.
how are we going to do this? But if you have a team as far as a significant other, my wife, we worked it through, and we're happy that we have 3 more months of having 2 in preschool. We'll have 1 and then 2 in public school, saving money. But it's just sacrifice. I found people, there are guys out there, all they do is work. They're never around. And but I have to make the money. Money's not everything. The time with your kids from when they're born to 5, 6, if you didn't spend a good amount of time in there with them, you lost it. And it's going to be hard for you to get it back. But I hope you continue trying. But that's why I wanted to be there for my kids. I want to be an example. Like you're a power lifter. I like to work out. I work out at home. I don't go to the gym. I don't have time to drive, go there, park, go and work with people that you might get sick now because you don't know what's going on. Then work out and come back home. They come and work out with me, and we enjoy it together. I'm teaching them health is important for you as well, so that we don't have any issues going forward. Because the healthier you are, the more energy you have, you can go longer for whatever you're focused on in that moment. So I think that's a powerful thing. Can you talk about your powerlifting and how has that correlated to success with your podcasting, with your business building, and with Skool in general? Are there any attributes, any skills that you've done in powerlifting that have been kind of crossing over to what you're doing on those?
Oh, absolutely. Powerlifting was really the key critical shift in my life when I discovered powerlifting. So taking it back over a decade now, back in 2013, I was diagnosed with childhood cancer at the age of 18. Through the next 9 months, I had to go through some pretty brutal chemotherapy, as well as receive an amputation of my right leg. And just to give you from my personal experience, not everybody's experience is this way, but the chemo was, because people ask a lot of like, how did you handle the amputation? And I tell everybody the amputation was the best part of 2013 for me because I got to be off chemo for 3 weeks. That's how bad chemo was for me. Mm-hmm. It absolutely destroyed all of my humanity. It sucks the soul out of your body more and more every single day. And Austin, my business partner, he's a cancer survivor as well. He can speak to this testament so well, having battled cancer 4 times now. But that left me in a very dark space when I came out of that. Here I was 18 years old, getting ready to, one day I'm fighting for my life. The next day I'm reintegrating into society, getting a job, going to college. And here I am with all of these college students who just had the best summer of their life after graduating high school. And I just had to take a year off to fight for my life every single day. And so it's like, how do you relate to people? How do you find meaning and purpose in your life again when you just spent a year fighting just to live every single day? It's hard to find a purpose that just equivalates to that in normal day-to-day life. And so on the surface, I think I looked fine to a lot of people. I got very good at putting on the face, putting on the mask, but inside I was in a very, very dark spot, and I fell into alcoholism and went down a really, really dark path for many years. I never hit like a rock bottom point of like, I can never do this again. And I walked forward of in this light of, oh, I'm just a different person now. That wasn't really how my story went. I certainly had many moments that should have been a rock bottom moment, but a shift started occurring to me shortly after I got into running. And to keep the story short, I got into running just simply because I needed something different. I was somehow able to recognize that this drinking, this escape, this running away from what's inside of me is not working. It's not sustainable. It's not fruitful. I need something else. So I just started running merely just as a means for something else that might be positive on my life. Got into where I did a half marathon just 3 or 4 months later. And in doing that half marathon, I realized, wow, I've got a lot of potential inside me that I didn't even know was there. And if I could do this, what else could I do? And even more importantly, what else could everybody else do? From running, because I'm not really a runner in terms of build, in terms of enjoyment for the sport.
Yeah.
It's a great sport for building a lot of things in yourself, but it's not my thing. But so I went from there, got into lifting, discovered powerlifting, which is a strength-based sport centered around the squat, bench, and deadlift. And that became my bread and butter. That became the thing where I could actually, in a sense, go to war with myself, which is what I was doing with alcohol, but I could do it in a way that was actually going to build me up and make me stronger. Now, I couldn't bring that go to war with yourself mentality to the entirety of my powerlifting career, but for the initial phase, it at least helped me have a space to put all of that emotion, just dump it all out of me, the stuff I'd been internalizing for years and keeping bottled up. I got to dump it all out of me. And for me, powerlifting was a very emotionally driven sport for a long time, probably the first 5 years I was in it. Then about 3 years ago, I was able to get to a space where I made that shift of, you know what, I've got some real potential in this sport. I'm going to start approaching this more strategically with kind of an operator mindset and less of just a pure emotionally driven mindset. So from there, around that time was when I had my very last drink ever. I tell the story I've told on a couple podcasts now of dumping out that drink because it was just something I decided no longer served me. That was the moment where I had this identity shift and I became somebody who doesn't drink. And ever since then, I don't drink. And for me personally, the idea of alcohol has since become something that's repulsive. I don't judge other people for drinking, but for me, it's just not something that is a part of my identity anymore. It's outside of the story I tell myself. And so from there, I got deep into the competitive side and started looking at what are some of the biggest numbers, what are some of the limits that I can bust through in this sport. And I was able to deadlift 500 pounds in competition back in 2023. I was able to um, then move on to start pursuing a 500-pound squat, which some amputees have gotten close to before. Nobody's ever busted through that barrier in competition, though, as far as I can find anywhere on the internet. And so, it was a long road, a long journey, and I learned about my capacity to work, to be dedicated to a craft, to be highly disciplined in all areas surrounding it, from nutrition to recovery to performance in the gym. And I learned how to take this really holistic perspective and channel it into one thing. And that really set me up nicely for what we've now come to push through Impossible Performance, because I take those same skills, same drive, same mindset, and put that into Impossible Performance. And then in August of this past year, I was able to step under the bar. Here's what's crazy, Sean. We talk about stories. And I think I've already told you this, but in powerlifting, you get 3 attempts at each movement, 9 total lifts, squat, bench, deadlift. Your first attempt is usually just to kind of test the waters, figure things out.
Warm up kind of thing, right?
Yeah, more or less. So I take 450 pounds for my first attempt. Goes great, no issues. I decide, hey, I want to take 500 for my second attempt. Not really because I, want to have 2 attempts at it if I fail. But really, I was thinking, I think I got more in me than 500 even. So I want to leave another lift so that, when I smoke this 500, I'll be able to come back and chase even more. I wanted to keep that very open mind to my own potential. I come up for the first attempt at 500 and get under the bar. And I was in not a bad mental spot, but I was more emotionally driven than I knew I should have been at the time. And while that emotion is a very powerful driver, don't get me wrong, it's something that should be leveraged. If you get into that too heavily, it can throw off some of the other focus on the physical aspect, because everything has to be perfect when you're under that kind of weight. I mean, this is weight that feels like it will absolutely crush you, like you're going to buckle under it. That's how it feels when you just lift the bar up out of the rack. And so then to think about going to a full depth squat and coming up with it is extremely challenging on the mind. And you've got pain signals shooting out. You've got every fiber of your being like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. But you have to become in control of that narrative in your head. And that's what powerlifting taught me and helped me develop the skill in that now we help other people with. When I'm standing under 500 pounds of weight, I have to stay calm. I have to stay in control. I have to tell my story or myself a story about my own ability to do it. And I wasn't that locked in for the first attempt. And I came down, and you saw in the video, it folds me over like a pancake, like not even close. I couldn't even get to depth with the weight, let alone try to come back up with it. I get out from under that bar, and I immediately look at Austin, my business partner, who was handling me that day. And I said, this is just going to make a better story. because I wanted that narrative to immediately be not something negative of, oh, this isn't going to happen. I can't do this. This, and this are off today. It's just not going to happen, which is where our brains would naturally want to go. I wanted to immediately take control of that narrative and say, you know what? I'm glad I failed that, because it's going to make a better story that I'm going to tell in the future on podcasts, just like I'm doing right now. And I go back, I sit down, I put on the music that I know gets me in the exact right spot. I sit and just close my eyes and breathe. And I start telling myself the story about myself and my own ability to squat this weight. 5 minutes later, I get back under that bar. I'm in the exact perfect spot. I lift the bar up. I come down to full depth, total control, and explode out of the bottom, pushing harder than I've ever pushed in my life. I pushed so hard that my contacts came out of my eyes because my eyeballs changed shape.
Oh, man.
Dude, it was wild. I couldn't see straight for a while after that. I come back up, and at the top, when you're under that kind of weight, you were so internalized, it's like the whole world around you disappears. And at the top, you can see in the video, I have this like burst of emotion that comes out. It's like all of a sudden I was jolted back to reality. I was like, I almost didn't believe that I just did that for a second. But that's the power of the story. Nothing changed for me physically in those 5 minutes between completely failing 500 the first time and succeeding with it the second time. Nothing changed physically. In fact, I would have even been physically a little bit weaker because I put so much energy into trying to squat it the first time. The only thing that changed was my mental state, my emotional state, my spiritual state. And those were leveraged by the story I told myself in those 5 minutes between the two lifts. And we can do that in moments like powerlifting max effort weight. And we can also do that in any other pursuit we have for life.
Damn. And that's just like people that, and our episode flies, man. You're going to definitely see Matthew again. And what he was just sharing there, I want to end on any final thoughts for those that every day people are joining Skool, but every day there's people quitting, and they're not telling the right story to themselves. What kind of quick little story in 90 seconds that you can share to help someone keep moving with their Skool instead of just calling it quits and say it's never going to work, and changing their mindset to keep them like that fire under them?
Yeah. I'm glad you asked that question, because that's exactly how I wanted to close, was with a story. I'll try to keep it as short as possible. 90 seconds might be tough, but we'll get through it here. So here was a big shift outside of powerlifting, outside of anything else. The biggest shift I had within my business at Impossible Performance and what we do with our podcast happened a couple years ago. It was actually just days after my daughter was born. We'd been pushing through doing the podcast for a long time. I was a cancer survivor myself. We'd had lots of cancer survivors on. There was a woman who was a massive mentor to me when I was battling through cancer myself. Her name was Ginger McConnell. And I'm not going to get through this without crying. Ginger had cancer 3 different times in her life, 3 totally separate cancer diagnoses. She had a deletion mutation where her body had no natural self-defense against cancer. Wow. So she had 3 totally different types of cancer in her lifetime. But she fought through each time with a heart and a wonder for life and a passion for everything she had in her life that was infectious to everybody that came in contact with her. During her last battle, she had to do some pretty intense brain radiation because the cancer spread to her brain. Doctors told her she had maybe 3 to 6 months left to live. This was in early 2023. She goes through the brain radiation. It leaves her to the point she can't hardly talk right. She struggles to form fully functioning sentences. She struggles to always understand everything people are telling her. But she still was able to build back skill and perform in this capacity better than anybody would have ever expected. And we had just started the podcast. I think she is episode number 10 on our show. And she came down to our studio. Her husband came down with her to kind of help tell the story with her. And she put the most beautiful message forth that I've ever heard in my life. It was about living life. It was about living with passion. It was about loving yourself, loving your family, loving your children. And there was a moment on there, because her son was off at school at the time in a totally different city. There's a moment on there I asked her, I know your son's not in the room today, but if he were right here in front of you, what would you tell him? And she paused for a moment, and she came back to the microphone and she said, do it. Whatever that thing is that you dream about, that thing that you're worried you maybe can't achieve, you can't accomplish, she said, do it. Because when you're in the spot someday that I am right now, you don't want to have to sit back and wish you had taken those risks, you had done those things, you had pursued that impossible level of potential you set for yourself. So she said, go out and do it. And what's really crazy about this story, Sean, Ginger wanted to live long enough to see her son graduate. And he graduated the following spring. This was August of 2023. We recorded it. He graduated in May of 2024. She wanted to live long enough to see him graduate. The doctors told her it was absolutely not possible. She got on some newly approved therapies for cancer, fought through, maintained her mental state, and lived absolutely just long enough to see him graduate. Shortly after that, she passed away. And I got the opportunity to speak at her funeral just literally 2 days after my daughter was born. We literally got out of the hospital, drove down, and went to her funeral on our way home with our newborn daughter. And what I never realized until that moment is she is someone who is no longer with us. That beautiful light and spirit and life that she lived, we can no longer go up and talk to her and get that infectious spirit from her in person. But what we do have is we have a podcast. We have her voice forever remembered, forever encapsulated. And even more importantly than that, her son has that last message from her to him. And whenever he's in a place where he's lost or he needs to go back and find his way, he can listen to that 3-hour episode of his mom speaking to him about life, about love, about family. And that is about more important, more meaningful, more drive to the work we do today with Impossible Performance than anything else could have ever given.
Man, that was beautiful. And it's something that, yes, I agree with you. You get to look back on things you've done in the past. You have record of it. It was in my back of my mind when I first started doing video is whenever my time is up, there's still daddy stuff that's out there that you can learn from, get mentored from. So it's definitely something that another reason why doing what we're doing now is so powerful. So I appreciate you, man, for sharing that. That was an amazing podcast episode. Everyone, I want to remind you, go into the description, follow Matthew on all the socials, join his group on his Skool. There's 2 groups he's got. Have a connection call. Reach out to him, talk to him. He's a great guy. You'll learn so much from him. And it's not the end of our conversation. This is just the beginning, man. We have lots of stuff that we're going to be bringing to you all. You're going to definitely come back again. Matthew, I want you to stick around for another moment. Everyone else, I'm always here to help you, motivate you, and inspire you. We hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Don't forget, reach out, subscribe, like, comment, and share. We're here to help. We're merging ecosystems, guys. Lots of value bringing to you on a consistent basis. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you for the opportunity, Sean.